Hey folks, it's King from Stay Tuned Sports, and I gotta tell you, I love energy drinks. They help give me that boost that I need to finish all my work, get through game film recaps from all of Sunday's games, and they provide that pick-me-up during a very long week. What I don't love is that crash and the jitters, the gross feeling you get with most other energy drinks. And that's why I tried Dubby, and I gotta tell you, Dubby is a game changer with flavors like Dragonade, Beach and Peach, Galaxy Grenade, and my personal favorite, the Dub Sludge. You can find your favorite or just get them all. There's no jitters, there's no crash because there's no sugar in Dubby. Plus, Dubby contains Neurofactor, an all-natural ingredient derived from coffee cherries, which has been linked to enhanced brain function. You go on over to dubby.gg right now. That's dubby.gg to grab the best energy drink you've ever had. And if you enter the code STSports18 in all caps, you'll get 10% off your order. That's STSports18 to get 10% off of Dubby. Be better.
And hello there, all you stay tuned. And fuck the Eagles. I hate the Eagles. Don't get me wrong here. First quarter, keep it even. Second quarter, start running the fucking ball. Third quarter, take a power nap. Fourth quarter, oh shit, there's the rest of the game. Let's go.
Fuck it, I'm a diabetic. I will root for the team that will literally give me diabetes and death. Rooting for a team from Hershey is like a Catholic rooting for Satan. It doesn't make any sense.
This is Stay Tuned Sports, and it starts in 3, 2, 1.
And hello there, all you Stay Tuners. Welcome back to another episode of Stay Tuned Sports. It's your good friend Jimbo here with our good buddy King.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. I guess this is our second take at a video show.
Listen, there's a lot of bugs to kink out. We still got bugs going on here where there's a little bit of reverb in the headphones and stuff like that, but we're going to make it work. We're going to do our best because there's way too much stuff to talk about right now.
Yes. And just look at it like this. This is our training camp where we're working out the bugs before the regular season kicks in where it really, really matters.
That's all. We're just doing 2 days here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Working where you got to work out everything. We're having a Daniel Jones type of first practice against the Lions. He did better in his second,
you know? See, I didn't see nothing about him. I just keep seeing about how Dak keeps throwing interceptions.
But Dak is Dak. But see, here's the thing. I don't put too much stock in a lot of the training camp stuff because it is what it is. It's practice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm not going to sit there and put a lot of stock in it. I'm just going to be like, hey, listen, this is what it is. You're supposed to make mistakes and you're supposed to not be great. You're supposed to throw some picks and take some chances, see, work things out like we're doing now. Like we said, we're working out the kinks. They're working out the kinks in the offense and the defense, all that stuff. So I don't put too much stock into people who worry about, oh boy, that quarterback, he didn't look good. He did not look good in that practice. Oh, did you see that first training camp? Oh my God, he looks bad. No. I don't see that. It is what it is. Wait until 2 or 3 weeks into a season, and if a quarterback's not playing well, or you see like a team's not gelling, then you could start to worry.
Yeah.
But for training camp, this is the point of training camp.
I'll tell you what, though, I am curious for Saturday night with the Eagles preseason. I know it's preseason. I know we both said we don't really watch or whatever. I am going to tune in to see how my buddy, my guy, Jalen Carter does. From what I've been reading, he's just dominating the defensive line to the point that even the Eagles' offensive line are trying to figure out how to scheme against them.
Wow. That Eagles defense is going to be a problem.
Yes. As long as we can stay healthy.
They are going to be a massive problem all year. But here's the thing: even if you're not healthy, the what they've been able to put together depth wise on that Eagles defense, like we all look at the starters and yes, they're massive, and you're basically the Georgia Bulldogs as we've said before. But if we look at that Eagles defense, I almost said Georgia defense. If we look at that Eagles defense, depth-wise is even more impressive than even just what you have as the starters, because you can have a couple guys take a blow, a couple guys get hurt or whatever, and you can still put guys in there and not lose anything.
Yeah. And that's the thing that's been coming out of training camp is it's going, because, Philly likes to use a rotation type style of defense for their defensive line. They said, everywhere I was reading, said it's going to be tough to keep him off the field because he's playing, he's practicing so well. But, practice is one thing. Game, playing in the game is totally different, like we talked about. But, like you said, kicking off the show, we have a lot to talk about. We have, some college realignment.
There is so much to talk about when it comes to that. Wow. That last Friday, literally there was, I want to say like a 4-hour period in which the entire landscape of college football changed.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Pac-12 is dead.
Well, not according to a couple of those teams. They need to band together and make a super conference. I saw it. I just kept scrolling.
In that 4-hour period, that conference died.
Yeah.
I don't even know. We don't know the ramifications of this yet. Of like truly how far this is going to go as far as creating some of these. Well, the super conferences that we talked about last year, because when we went through this last year, we had the same thing.
Yeah.
And you went from the Pac-12, where you had USC and UCLA then say they were going for the Big Ten. So then you had the Pac-10 basically again.
Okay.
Then Colorado this year said, okay, we're going back to the Big 12. They were leaving. So now you only had 9 schools. Then you still have the Pac-12 here who cannot get any kind of television deal. And I think that was the problem, is a lot of this comes from the commissioner of the Pac-12. Both, I think it was the one before Larry Scott and this guy now, I forget his name. It's like something that begins with a K.
Okay.
His last name is like Cock It Up a Lot or whatever his name is. But it would be an appropriate name, because it seems like they just had an apathy almost, or just this idea that, well, we're the Pac-12 and it'll be okay. Someone will pick us up. Someone will want to do something.
Yeah.
And the stories coming out about last Friday morning and the meeting that they had between all the Pac-12 commissioners and presidents and all that stuff is some wild shit. It is absolutely wild. There's a lot of talk. From what I understand, a lot of some of the smaller schools there thought that they had something. The commissioner had basically sold them on the whole Apple deal, telling them that, the Apple deal, it wasn't going to give them a lot, but if they hit certain streaming goals, then they would get even more, and they would get more. They would get closer to what the SEC has, and things like that per payout per school, and all this other stuff. And basically, Oregon and Washington walked in, heard that, said, we're going to the Big Ten, and walked out of the room. And as soon as that happened, that's when you had Arizona and Utah start talking to the Big 12. Arizona State ended up jumping in on that. And then that's when you had later on in the day, Arizona State and Utah both signed over to the Big 12. So now you have the Pac-12, who has 4 teams left: Stanford, Cal, Washington State, and Oregon State. You have the Big 12 that has 16 teams. You have the Big 10 that has 18 teams. So right now, college football doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to unpack here. and not just with football. There's a lot to unpack with football. Don't get me wrong. The traveling, the scheduling. Are we just going to get super conferences? Are there now 3 legitimate super conferences? I would say that the Big 12 is a super conference. I would say the Big 12 is a super conference. It's the third of the super conferences.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Big 10 and the SEC can battle for 1 and 2, but the Big 12, for what we all thought last year was dead after Texas and Oklahoma left, all of a sudden they're alive. They have schools now. They have a lot of schools that maybe a lot of people don't see as bigger schools, but they still have a decent amount. They have Utah. They have BYU coming in. They have Colorado with Prime, which is going to be a lot better than Colorado's been in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I guarantee that just from recruiting. And honestly, Colorado can't get much worse. Yeah. So they're going to be better just, I think, by default. And you also had a team from the Big 12 that was in the national championship. Granted, they got their ass kicked. But, you have TCU. Baylor's been good for a little bit here. Now you bring in some of the Conference USA teams they're bringing in, or the American athletic teams like Central Florida's coming in, and Cincinnati's coming in. Cincinnati was just in the playoffs. You have teams now in the Big 12 that have been in the playoffs or have vied for the playoffs in almost every year now. And you have a solid football program, and you have fucking 16 teams. You have a lot of teams now.
Yeah.
For a conference that was working with, I think it was 8 or 9 for the last couple of years. Now they're one of the bigger conferences simply because of volume, and people could argue about quality. But then now we go over to, listen, I think the same thing is, the SEC is 4 or 5 teams and then a bunch of nobodies.
Yeah.
Like who gives a shit about Vanderbilt or Ole Miss or Mississippi State or Missouri or, insert school here, like South Carolina. As much as I love the Cox, go Cox. They are, they're not a legitimate threat ever in the SEC.
Yeah.
Or in college football. You know what I mean? So, and look at the Big Ten. Maryland, Rutgers, Purdue, Northwestern, Iowa. Iowa's always good for maybe an upset every year or so, but even so, Nebraska's been shit.
Yeah.
Every now and then one of those teams from the Big Ten West come out and do something, but they ultimately end up failing. But like I said, so I don't put the Big 12 in any real huge disadvantage, especially now with the college football playoff expanding. I think they're going to be fine. And I think that's it. You got the Big 3 now. I think, people talk about, Power 4, they're a Power 5. What if the Pac-12 can get something? First of all, the Pac-12 is dead.
Yeah.
Even if the Pac-12, what are they going to do? Raid the Mountain West? Who gives a fuck? Yeah, nothing like getting Boise State and Utah State and Colorado State, who's been even worse than the fucking Colorado Buffaloes. And you can't get much worse than them, but they've been worse. Yeah. Colorado's 1 win a year, every year has at least been against Colorado State. Wyoming, let's get Wyoming in the Pac-12. What the fuck are we doing here? Like at this point, I think you just got to accept defeat and let the Pac-12 go.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, but I think it's got to go. But then that's it. You have some schools that have some pedigrees, and not just in football. Like Stanford and Cal have amazing Olympic athletic programs.
Yeah.
Beyond just what football is. And Stanford, they have ebb and flows, but up until recently, they had a good 8-year run where they were a great team, high-ranked team, 4th, 5th, 6th ranked. Stanford was always there. On the football side of it, I think there's still a lot of dominoes to fall. But a good question that I think a lot of other people brought up, and I want your kind of opinion on this too, it's all the other sports. Is, the baseball, lacrosse, field hockey, ice hockey, swimming, gymnastics, things like that, track and field. for these football teams and things that, when they travel, they travel once a week. It's, even if you're traveling from Eugene, Oregon to Piscataway, New Jersey, you got to play Rutgers.
Yeah.
It's cross country. It sucks. It's a long flight, but you're doing it once a week and it's there. You're a softball team. Like you're going to have like a West Coast swing now, like let's say you're Maryland. Now you got to go and, well, let's plan it out. Let's go play in Seattle against Washington. Let's go play in Oregon. Let's go down and play UCLA and USC and then swing back home. And then after that long ass flight, okay, you get back home at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you got to go to class at 7:30.
Yeah.
Like, and again, these are not the football players. These are not people who are basically professional athletes and don't give a shit if they go to class or not. Like, these are legitimate student athletes.
Yeah.
That still have to go to class and still have to do this. That's where it becomes a little bit more problematic, I think, in my mind, when you start looking at the other sports. And that's the other thing too. Like, it's a double-edged sword because these other sports get funded, and a lot of their funding comes from the football program.
Yeah.
And from what they bring in, and a lot of these new deals are going to be bringing in a lot of money for these schools and for their athletic programs. But now they're also going to have to spend a lot of money on the travel. And what does that travel do to the student body? I wonder what your thought is on that whole situation and conundrum about that, about how the making these moves, strictly thinking of football, how it affects these other sports.
I think in a way it's kind of messed up, but I mean, if football is your moneymaker, I mean, you gotta put more of your thinking, like going to a new conference or whatever, has to kind of be based around the football program, because, like I said, that's your moneymaker for these other, softball, baseball, or whatnot. I mean, I guess you could take into a little bit of consideration these other sports, but it's going to be tough to please all the programs. So
now, I heard a unique idea. I forget where I heard it. I wish I could give credit, but my memory sucks. I'm old. Deal with it. But what about the idea of taking the football, like we talked about super conferences and things like that about the Big Ten. What if we just say, screw this? Let's take the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, and maybe the one or two other outlying schools, Notre Dame, Stanford, something like that, and actually make a super conference. Actually make a football, make it East and West, North and South, whatever you want to do, however you want to put them together, or do something. Make four of them. I don't care. Do a Northwest, East, South, North, Midwest, whatever, and actually do that and have for football those be those football conferences and football only. Those are football conferences. Obviously, the college football is kind of separate from the NCAA anyway.
Yeah,
like the NCAA really has no authority or power over college football as it stands now. So just finally rip that Band-Aid off and just do this. And you have these, 60 or so schools, 64 or so schools that are football conference schools. That's it. They're part of this football super conference. And then leave regional conferences for all the other sports. Like, still have the Big East and the ACC and the Pac-12 and stuff like that for basketball, for lacrosse, for softball, for all the other stuff, so that it still remains regional. It doesn't put the strain on the travel costs. It doesn't put the strain on any student athletes, of those ones that are actually student athletes, and does that. I think that's a unique idea. I think that's probably where we're going anyway.
Well, that sounds like the best idea to do.
I think that's a great idea. It's just a case of, can you do it would there be any, like, would the NCAA try to throw any legal blocks into it? I don't know if they could.
I mean, could they though? Because I mean, just look at Notre Dame alone. You know, we're in the independent. The football program's in the independent, but the rest of the sports programs are part of the ACC.
Are in the ACC, right? So that's what I mean. That shows that something like that can work, and I think we're moving that way anyway. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to have maybe some of these schools that made this move say, like, this was done for the money reasons, and this was done for those reasons, and for, you know, because it does help to fund the athletic programs and do everything like that. But when it comes to the other sports, it literally is not sustainable.
Yeah.
To have the Oregon Ducks lacrosse team go out to Piscataway to play Rutgers or Maryland, or, you know, have anything like that. It doesn't make any kind of financial sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. For football, fuck. But I think they need to start looking at it from that aspect. And I don't know, like, that's what makes me wonder, because I think we have a case where we're not done yet. I think, you know, again, I think there is always going to be the Notre Dame question. And I think the Notre Dame question also works with what, that ties into some other schools there. I think that ties into what Stanford does. What does the Big Ten want to do?
Well, I did see yesterday that supposedly there was a source, and I saw it on Twitter, that Notre Dame is pushing Stanford to join the ACC so they could keep that rivalry there.
Well, there's also, because there's word that the ACC wants to take in Stanford and Cal.
Yeah.
But the ACC is facing its own, like, the ACC is going the way of the Pac-12, I think, soon.
Yeah.
Especially with the loudness of Florida State, but also Miami, North Carolina, Duke, and Clemson have all been saying, listen, we want this grant of rights deal and this situation is not sustainable. We are not getting nearly enough money, and the way things are, we can't compete with the SEC and the Big Ten, and we don't want to do that. And I know Florida State's thing has been, well, we want a bigger cut.
Yeah.
We want a bigger cut than some of these, than Boston College or Syracuse, because we're a bigger brand and we're pulling our weight. But I think in the long run, you're going to look at these schools. They're already looking at lawyers. I know that Clemson and Florida State have already have lawyers looking into what they need to do to get out of the grant of rights. Because here's the other thing I learned too, is that they can leave the ACC if they pay the $125 million exit fee or whatever. And I heard that they were even talking to certain banks about giving them loans to get out of that. But the grant of rights is separate from that. What the way it was explained, the way I understood it, is that while they can leave the ACC and play in another conference, what they did by giving the ACC the grant of rights is that the ACC basically owns their games.
Okay.
So now that means that any games they play anywhere, though any revenue, anything like that, still goes to and comes from the ACC. Those rights those games that they would want to play belong to the ACC.
And it's not just a cut; it's 100%.
So it's like the ACC owns the games, like the actual physical games themselves that they would schedule.
Yeah,
they own their games until 2036.
Holy shit!
So even if they buy themselves out, the grant of rights doesn't allow the games to go anywhere else but the ACC and the ACC network and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's where you're going to have to start looking into the lawyers, which they already are.
Yeah.
And looking to get out. So if I'm Stanford and Cal, maybe for a stopgap to survive. But that's the other thing too. Like the feeling that I get around Stanford and Cal is that they don't give a shit. They would never, like, the football program is not their main priority.
Okay.
And granted, they're more academic institutions and things like that, but I can see the Big Ten making a play for Stanford to get Notre Dame. And I still think, and a lot of people get pissed and say, like, oh, Notre Dame, I'm tired. Who even wants fucking Notre Dame? Listen, whether you like Notre Dame or not, Notre Dame is still money.
Yeah.
Bottom line is Notre Dame is a money printing machine for whoever gets them. And if you don't think the SEC is still trying to get Notre Dame, if you don't think the Big Ten is still trying to get Notre Dame, the ACC, obviously, they feel like they have their foot in the door at Notre Dame. But I think Notre Dame also sees the writing on the wall there. I really do. And so I think Notre Dame's going to wait for the right time. I really hope Notre Dame does eventually. And I was always a proponent of Notre Dame staying independent. I always was.
Okay.
I was always like, fuck the conferences. They don't need one. Everybody always screamed, Notre Dame needs to join a conference. Notre Dame needs to join a conference. I was like, no, the fuck they don't. And as we've seen, they haven't. They still put together some of the best and toughest schedules in football every year. As much as people try to decry them, they still have one of the tougher schedules.
Yeah.
They're not playing, like Alabama A&M. They're not playing William and Mary.
Yeah.
Or the Citadel. They're playing, actual Division I teams. As much as I was a proponent and fan of them staying independent, we are at a time now in college football where they're going to have to join a conference, whether that ends up being like the super conference that we talked about, whether that ends up being the Big Ten, or even the SEC or something like that. And don't think for a minute that the SEC isn't trying to get them.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going. And so now it's time to be, because here's the other thing too. Notre Dame might have, if they build up enough animosity towards them about like, oh, we're not going to join anybody. We're not going to join anybody. That's what I fear is, and they probably won't because of money, but I have, there's always the fear that if they do start a super conference or they do, kind of break away and do their own thing, that you'll have the, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, whatever, say like, okay, well, whoever comes from our conference, our little club here, they get to be in the playoffs. Anybody outside of that doesn't. Anybody like the Mountain West, they don't get to be in it.
Yeah.
The AAC, Conference USA, they don't get to be in it. Oh yeah. And by the way, Notre Dame, you don't get to be in it because this is just for us.
Yeah.
So that's always a worry. Do I think that will happen? No, but it's a possibility. So if I'm Notre Dame, like, and here's the other thing too. If you get Stanford into the Big Ten, and this is the other thing that I think gives the Big Ten the advantage. The Big Ten now has a majority of Notre Dame's rivals in conference.
Yep.
Like Michigan, Michigan State, USC. If they get Stanford, that's 4 of Notre Dame's biggest rivals in conference. And that's the other thing too is these conferences are getting so big, they might go to a more conference-heavy schedule, in which then they say you can't schedule Notre Dame. And not only that, for the 1 or 2 out-of-conference games that they'll be able to schedule, they will want to schedule a cupcake. They won't want to schedule Notre Dame. And then you get rid of, like, can you imagine not having the Notre Dame USC rivalry?
Oh, God.
Or Notre Dame Stanford? Like, no.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big allure, and I think that's a big part of why the Big Ten. Like a lot of people were wondering, like, well, the Big Ten. Oh, they got 2 California teams. They got 2 Southern Cal teams. Like, what's the point of that? It's like I think a big part of that was getting USC, because getting USC now that's a huge piece in trying to get Notre Dame into the conference.
So let me ask you this then, because the other thing I did see also is I guess Notre Dame is negotiating with NBC about a extension, and it's possibly like a 10-year extension. How hard would it be, like, if Notre Dame wanted to join the Big Ten or whatnot, would that contract transfer over, or would they be like in breach of contract? Or
I think with the Big Ten now having a contract with NBC and Peacock and them, I think that if anything, that'll help if Notre Dame transfers over and does anything like that. And listen, Notre Dame is always going to try to be Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And so they might even try to be like, listen, we have our own special deal. Like we know the Big Ten has its deal with NBC and Peacock, and they go to that, but we also still have our own deal.
Yeah.
And so, like, not only do we get a cut of the Big Ten contract, but we still also have ours. So we have a little extra special. And I'm sure people wouldn't like that, but that's Notre Dame, and that's how they're always going to act, and that's how they're always going to try to be. And if you're Notre Dame, I would try to do that as well.
Yeah.
That's just that just makes sense. That's, money wise. But I think whether that happens, whether some kind of hybrid deal or something like that, I think that is something that will work in Notre Dame's favor and in the Big Ten's favor, is that they both now have a relationship with NBC.
Okay.
And if Notre Dame works in that contract, and that's probably something they're looking at too. And again, we wouldn't be privy to that unless somebody leaks it. But they might have wording in that contract, because NBC might want to cover their ass too.
Yeah.
And just be like, if this and that happens, and if Notre Dame ends up joining the Big Ten, then, this happens and this triggers this, and that it was either an escalator or a de-escalator or something like that, or something of that nature. Again, lawyer shit that I wouldn't know, and we wouldn't know unless, again, it got leaked. But again, I don't think Notre Dame does it this year, but you got the college football playoffs expanding next year. You have everybody moving over to the new conferences next year. I mean, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington are moving to the Big Ten next year. Utah, Arizona State moving to the Big 12, BYU moving to the Big 12, Colorado moving to the Big 12. And I think USC joined UCF, joined this year. Cincinnati's joining this year. So I mean, it's starting to shake out now. And I think you're starting to see that's why Florida State's making noise, Clemson's making noise. They want to see what they can get, because nobody wants to be left outside in the cold.
Yeah.
When this all finally does shake out. And that's what I mean. You still have the Big Ten and SEC fighting for Clemson. I think they're both trying to get Clemson. North Carolina is surprisingly a big get for either one of them, whether it's the SEC or Big Ten. And if you get North Carolina, you're probably getting Duke as well, because North Carolina is not going to leave Duke anywhere. And likewise, Duke's not going to leave North Carolina anywhere, simply for the basketball rivalry, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So they'll be going somewhere. And another question somebody brought up too, I know we're spending a lot of time here on the college stuff. We did want to talk about other stuff. But if you get enough teams, like, do you look at maybe some of these conferences ditching some teams? Like when contracts come up and stuff like that. Like somebody was talking about, like, would the Big Ten look at getting rid of like Maryland and Rutgers, right? To add certain other teams,
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. I mean, you want to have the strongest conference from team 1 all the way down to team 10 or whatever it would be.
Like would the SEC want to get rid of Vanderbilt and Missouri?
Yeah. I mean, I could see that happening. I mean, that's, in a way, it's kind of like good logic. Again, you want the toughest teams that bring in the most money, and that'd be your. Not saying these Alabama's going to move to a different.
I don't think it's not about so much toughest teams or conference. Like all that kind of stuff. I think it's more the case of you're going to have teams like Michigan, Ohio State, if Notre Dame joins Notre Dame, or USC. Oregon, they're going to look around and say, like, how the fuck are we getting the same cut as fucking Rutgers?
Yeah.
Or as Maryland, or as Purdue, or Northwest? How are we getting the same cut as these fucking schools? So I think that's a question where you might start seeing some teams either like, or some colleges be like, maybe either contract and get rid of some of these teams or give us a bigger share.
Yeah.
Which again is the whole problem that the ACC is facing right now. So I don't know. Like you'd have to see if unless they stick together for unity and all this other stuff. You'd have to see. But I think that's an interesting question to ask to going forward. Or
I don't think you'll see anything like that happen for a few years, 5-10 years.
Or well, whenever this Big Ten deal is up with some of these teams, because that's the other thing too. Oregon and Washington are only getting a half share.
Yeah.
For the first couple of years, and I think it escalates after a couple of years, and it goes up a little bit. But they're not getting full shares, and they won't until the next Big Ten contract with either Peacock or NBC or whoever they talk to about it, Fox, whatever.
Yeah.
Because the Big Ten's got 3 deals. They got Peacock, CBS, and Fox, so they got everybody. But whenever that next deal happens, then they'll get the full share. So that's when you're going to start seeing that or hearing that or seeing anything like that. So that's still a little bit out of the way. But I think that's something that may happen. So, like, that's the other thing, too. Like, if I'm a Rutgers, if I'm a Maryland, you better start getting better.
Yeah.
And that's something you're going to have to start looking at is becoming a better team and actually being competitive. But that's another thing, too. Would you maybe want to keep some soft teams in your conference so that you can still schedule cupcake games as if they do now? But, it's still an in-conference game. But, like, again, when Alabama goes and plays Vanderbilt, like, who's expecting fucking Vanderbilt to win?
Yeah.
Nobody.
I'd much rather keep, like, the mid-tier teams where it helps make your schedule look stronger compared to having the weakest team that you're playing. Like
we're in conference. We're having a conference game. Yeah, the conference game's against Rutgers. But you get to say, it's in conference. So
yeah. So I would much rather keep a mid-tier team in and then bounce out the cupcake ones.
We'll see. I don't know. Well, again, like you said, I think we got a few years before that happens. Hey, your Baltimore Orioles are doing pretty fucking good, man.
Yeah, the team is.
I hate that they are, and I hate how the Yankees are doing. I really do.
Not so much jackass Angelos.
That seems to be the sentiment that goes around. Not just Baltimore, but apparently everywhere. Especially after this story broke earlier in the week. And apparently this was back at the end of July that this happened. So it's actually been a couple weeks.
Oh wow, okay. I thought
it was like I think it was mid-July or something that this happened, or I forget the actual date, but yeah. And as this recording, from what I understand, he still hasn't been reinstated. But yeah, Baltimore Orioles broadcaster, and I forget his name,
Kevin Brown.
Kevin Brown, there you go. Thank you so much for doing the research for me, because I'm a bad podcast host. But Kevin Brown literally stated facts, nothing but facts, not an opinion, didn't disparage the team or any player or anything of that matter. They had put graphics up that supported the facts that he was saying.
That's what kills me.
So there was clearly... a lot of things like that happening. He was indefinitely suspended by the Orioles after that game against the Rays. That apparently what it was, he came out and said that the O's have been atrocious in Tropicana Field since 2017. The last time they won a series in Tampa Bay was 2017. The winning pitcher from that game where they won the series is now a member of the Orioles broadcast team. Like, he's gone and retired and now has got a whole different job.
Yeah.
And let's face facts, as you are aware, or anybody who pays attention is aware, the Orioles have been garbage for the last 20 fucking years.
Yeah.
So, like, none of this is a surprise. None of this is anything. And again, he didn't say anything in a disparaging manner. He wasn't like, man, this fucking team sucks. Look at this. He said, listen, this is the first time in 6 years that we're going to be able to win a series down here in Tampa. This is how woeful it's been down here for a while, and now we got a chance to end that streak and to do something. It's just be another notch in this pretty incredible season for the Orioles, which kind of America has kind of started pulling for the Orioles, seeing them doing so well again. And then, he just disappeared from television. And then it came out a couple weeks later, which was the last weekend or the beginning of this week.
Yeah.
No, not the reason he hasn't been on television is that he was suspended
indefinitely.
And indefinitely suspended. And the Orioles' official statement is that we don't comment on internal matters. And we hope that Kevin Brown will be able to join us again soon. That was it. That was how they left it. And the one thing that I've loved about this is hearing every other baseball announcer, commentator, and journalist absolutely fucking drag Angelos and the Orioles. It's been a pleasure.
I hate the Yankees. Everybody knows that on the air here and also outside of the air. Kudos to the Yankees broadcaster. I don't know his name. It was the
John Sterling on the radio and Michael Kay on television, but they both have said quite a few words about it. John Sterling especially, yes.
I think it was Sterling that I heard. He said something, kind of pretty much along the same lines, but as far as the Yankees go, like the Yankees have done good against the Orioles this year. Hopefully I don't get suspended by Baltimore for saying that now. And, and then, kudos to the fans. They came out last night, I believe it was, yesterday's game, chanting Kevin Brown's name. Angelos, this may be the final nail in the coffin to have him ousted from the front office, because
he won't. And that's the other, and that's the thing that bugs me. Like, I'm not an Orioles fan. I'm a Yankees fan, so I hate Baltimore. But here you have this miraculous season out of nowhere, and you have, again, this feel-good story where, like, everybody's like, all right, Baltimore finally fucking doing something good. Everybody's kind of almost rooting for Baltimore. And then you go and do this, and you fuck it all up.
Yeah.
And you get it to now where people are like, well, all right, fuck you. Like, how do you take a feel-good story and fuck it up? Only Angelos can fucking do that.
I'm just thinking now, who Angelos reminds me of with this whole situation? Major League Baseball, the movie, the female owner. He's the female owner. Just when... Oh,
Major League? Yeah. No, he's trying to do anything he can just to fuck it up.
Yeah. And you know what? I hope, obviously, the O's keep on winning and keep on doing good. And I hope Kevin Brown gets a lawyer and says, you owe me money. There was nothing I said in there. And the kicker and the killer about this whole thing is, and like you said, they had a graphic put up with the exact same thing he was saying. So it's not
with
like,
the graphic guys? Were the graphic guys suspended too?
That's my point.
I haven't heard anything. I don't know. But
everybody that was involved with that, the teleprompter, the stats guys, they should be all suspended too. Otherwise,
that's what I mean. But were they, or is it like why was Kevin Brown singled out for saying on the air what was clearly prepared, clearly went through a lot of hands and a lot of people to the point where it was put up on the graphics and made, and it was there.
Yeah.
Like, that's right. And not only that, but it wasn't a hit piece.
Yeah.
He wasn't shitting on the team. If anything, he was trying to say, this is showing how good this year has been. We're ending a lot of these bad streaks that we've had. We haven't won a series in the Trop since 2017. Here's our chance to do it. We, this is another bad record is going to drop this year because of how good the Orioles are doing. And instead they suspended him for it.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, it doesn't make it, and I think that's the kicker, is that it's not even that it makes like little sense. Like, it's not even like, dude, this really doesn't make sense. Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes minus sense. Like, it doesn't, like, it really is. And I think that's what it is. And so I was happy to see, like, I saw the Cub broadcasters a couple days ago were talking about how, oh yeah, well, it's been a while. We've lost 276 consecutive games to the Mets and all that stuff. And Gary Cohen went on a spiel on the Mets television for it. I've been happy to see the baseball world rally around Kevin Brown, and the whole like it's just, it doesn't make fucking sense. And now it's almost like. And that's the other thing, too, is we figured once this happened, like maybe a day or two later, Kevin Brown will be back on the air. He's still not on the air. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
So that makes me wonder if he did lawyer up, because I was under the impression when Baltimore released the statement this past week that he was suspended indefinitely. I didn't realize he's been gone since middle of July or
How would he? Why would you lawyer? Like, if he lawyered up, then he definitely wouldn't be on the air.
But say mid-July, why didn't, like you said, why didn't Baltimore released a statement in July? Why was it this week, almost a month later?
Because nobody noticed until all that, and then it was leaked. And then when it leaked and got everywhere, that's when Baltimore released the statement.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't even release a statement saying, oh, he's been suspended and anything like that to inform people.
Yeah.
People found out that, well, this guy hasn't been on the air in a couple of weeks. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then it was leaked and found out that, oh, he was suspended. And then Baltimore came out and said, any and all problems are internal matters are handled internally. We don't comment on those. We just hope that Kevin Brown will be able to go ahead and join us again soon.
Oh, okay.
So, that wasn't a case of them just coming out and informing people. No, they kept this shit quiet.
Yeah.
Until people were like, where the fuck is this guy?
I just hope that when he does come back, if he does come back, they don't make him do like an apology letter or something like, I'm sorry for making disparaging remarks, like a prepared statement. Because
probably would. Knowing Angelos, he probably would make him do that. And maybe that's why he won't. Maybe he's like, I'm not going to do that. I didn't say anything wrong.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
And that's why he's still not back. So I don't know. But again, speaking of people who make graphics and make comments, maybe don't check on the sources. This is what I mean, man. Like as bad as we feel like we are sometimes, man, fucking Colin Cowherd, man. I don't know. Part of me wants to believe that he did it on purpose, so that we would do this.
I don't think so, because like I said,
because here's the other thing too. How does that go through that many people without somebody going up to him or anybody on the production staff
Very easy.
And going, hey, Colin, or graphics guy or producer or literally anybody that is involved with the show, do you remember when Dwayne Haskins died last year? Yes. Now, I guess to look at it from Colin Cowherd's point of view, he's technically correct.
How did I know you
because
were going to
Dwayne Haskins will never win a Super Bowl.
No.
So if we want to talk about correct, about whether he was right, technically Dwayne Haskins will never win a Super Bowl.
To take it a step further, it's not going to win a Super Bowl because when he read it off, when Cowherd read it off, he said, that's wrong. It's not, will not, or however he had it up on the graphic, it's can't win a Super Bowl. Well, obviously he can't win a Super Bowl.
Because it was the graphic said can, and he's like, no, this is the list for can. This is quarterbacks who can't win a Super Bowl, and that was it. And then he listed a couple other. I forget, he listed two before, and then he said Dwayne Haskins, and I'm listening. I was like, there's no. And here's the other thing too. Never corrected it.
Yeah.
Never came back from break and said, boy, complete goof, complete boner on my part. Obviously, Dwayne Haskins no longer with us. Apologize profusely. I don't know how that slipped through. Nope, nothing.
And no
just
apologies
continued on
to this day, right?
And I haven't heard anything or seen anything.
Yeah, neither have I.
So I listen. It could happen. I can miss stuff. I'm not on Twitter or X or whatever it is.
Yeah.
In fact, I've never tried X. Drug reference.
Zing.
But I gotta tell you, man. I again, that's another thing where that passed through so many hands, and not one. Like even the
The
kid
only-
that's making the fucking graphic, like the intern they have typing up the graphic,
Yeah.
like he doesn't stop and say like, Dewey Haskins is fucking dead. Like this is really wrong.
The only thing I could think of is maybe the graphic or maybe the teleprompter where you read it off of. It had to be their last day of work, and wants Ron Burgundy them. That's the only thing.
You'd want to think, but here's the thing. I don't think Colin read the screen. He has his stuff in front of him.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't read what's on the screen. You don't really see a lot of what's on the screen if you're doing the television. You're looking into the camera. You maybe see a teleprompter or something like that. But when he's going off on his stuff, there's usually not a prompter. So I don't think he was reading the graphics. So I don't think it's a case like that. But like, cause here's the thing: it's not even like a case of maybe like even the graphics guy maybe doesn't. Because even if it's the graphic guy doesn't catch it, the producer should catch it. If the producer doesn't catch it, fucking an intern should catch. Like somebody has to notice that. Like because that again. Those like the writers went through that, the fucking graphics people, producers, the people that are on the show with him, the rotating cast of women that he has on there, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like literally nobody stopped to say, no, Dwayne Haskins passed away. He got hit by a bus or something last year, down in Miami.
Yeah.
And like you can't do that. Like there's a few things you can't do in this world.
And come to think of it, I mean, they left the graphic up too. Like you said, if someone saw it,
they all kept it as legitimate, and that's what I mean. Is like the graphic stayed up. He never apologized for it. He never corrected a mistake. Nothing. It's gone as if straight. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It's like, are you absolutely kidding me?
Yeah,
dude, that's so bad.
I saw
it's
that,
so bad.
and I'm like, I saw the headline of it, and I'm like, no, like someone had to doctor this up or something, and I clicked it, and I'm watching it. Then, I clicked another article or whatever that had it, and I'm like, how stupid can you be?
And I'm used to seeing dumb Colin Cowherd headlines and articles and stuff like that, but holy shit, dude, what a mess. What an absolute mess for Colin Cowherd.
I just can't believe he hasn't, or because he's on Fox, right?
He's on FS1, yeah.
So Fox, like neither of them released an apology statement or even just a statement in general explaining how this happened.
Well, apparently, again, this is what makes me think that maybe he did it on purpose. Because I think he's got a contract coming up, and they're doing negotiations, and FS1 is putting up big numbers, I think, for him. And apparently there's word that ESPN is actually looking to maybe bringing him back to ESPN.
Okay.
And the reason why is because people talk about him. It's like the Skip Bayless effect.
So
he's
like a shock and awe.
Constantly. He's terrible, but maybe that's why he does it, because people talk about it. And again, more people tuned in. And I guarantee you more people tuned into the show after that.
Yeah.
His show the next day than have probably watched him in the last 6 months just to see if he talked about it or referenced it, which apparently he didn't. So that's fucking terrible. That's terrible. That's
the early dummy move of the year.
I was going to say the football season hasn't even started yet, and Colin Cowherd is already in mid-season. Even more so than us. Yeah. And I've made I made a mistake in the last show. I think I said something that was completely and utterly incorrect and not factual. But I said it anyway. And for whatever it was, I forget what it was at this point. I'd have to go back and listen to it. But I listened to it the other day, and I was like, oh, that's not right. I was like, that's absolutely incorrect what I said. So for anybody who heard that or understood that what I said was massively incorrect, and you're sitting at home and you're like, King, that was completely and utterly incorrect. You're right. It was, and I apologize for that. I forget what it was, but it was definitely incorrect. But yeah, so out of that, what do we got? We got some preseason starting officially, week 1 of preseason starting to hit.
I think actually I think tonight, because we're recording on Thursday instead of Wednesday. I think there's a game tonight, isn't there? Or does it start tomorrow?
There's 2 games tonight. There's 2 games tonight. I know the Patriots are playing. Texans are playing. I forget who else is playing. I don't really care too much about preseason. I don't think anybody really does, just as long as nobody gets hurt. Anybody important anyway. And that's what I mean. You're not seeing a lot of there's not a lot of people playing. Like Aaron Rodgers isn't playing for the Jets. Like nobody important is playing for the Bills. I haven't heard yet about the Giants, whether Daniel Jones is going to play or not. Clearly, I don't think Saquon's going to play. I think there's a couple things like that, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
So just as long, I think you get more out of the shared practices now anyway than you do for preseason games.
I think that's
outside of the guys fighting for a spot.
That's where they should go. Starting next year or whatever. Like get rid of the preseason games. Do these shared practices, like you said. You probably get more out of these shared practices than what you're going to get in the preseason games, and I feel like they're more controlled.
I think if they add an 18th game, which I think that's going to happen relatively soon, within the next 3 seasons, 3 to 5 years, you'll have the NFLPA say, okay, then end preseason, just end preseason, and we'll continue to do like the shared practices because you get more out of that. Plus, the quarterbacks don't get hit. I think you get more meaningful reps.
Did you see about that? About Dak?
I did see about that, and listen, there's always going to be some overzealous kid trying to make the team, and don't hit the quarterback wearing red. Just don't do it. That's an easy way to get kicked off a team, whether it's a shared practice or your own practice. Don't touch the red. Don't touch it.
I think that was Micah Parsons that tackled him, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't know. I know there was one from the Jets and Panthers practice.
Oh, okay.
With somebody hit Bryce Young or at least touched Bryce Young.
Okay.
So I don't know about that, but I did hear along with that had gotten hit. I didn't hear who hit him, but either way, don't touch the quarterback. Now, of course, they're not going to go to Micah Parsons. He's going to be he's the highest paid fucking defensive back in the league right now, or whatever. But I think you get more. The larger point here is, I think you get more out of the shared practices than you do from preseason games. Now, especially, it's a much more controlled environment. Again, the quarterbacks generally shouldn't be hit. And I think that overall prepares teams better than doing just the preseason games. And I think if they add the 18th game, I think that's what you're going to have the team saying is like, listen, we'll do the shared practices, we'll do all that. But if we're going to add the 18th game and preseason, and the owners, of course, want preseason because they make money off of that, because they force all the season ticket holders to buy those games, even if people don't go, which a lot of them don't. But you have to buy those tickets if you have season tickets. But if you have the players union fight with that and be like, listen, we'll do, and I think that's where you're going to have the players union stick their feet in the ground and be like, listen, we'll do 18 games, but we're ending preseason.
Yeah.
We're just not doing it anymore. No Hall of Fame game, none of that bullshit, nothing like that. We're just no preseason. I think that'll come relatively soon. I hope so too.
Yeah.
Again, I think overall that's better. Having the shared practices is better than preseason. And again, nobody really watches or cares about preseason anymore. Like, I don't think anybody cared about it then. And back in the day, back when they had the 14-game schedule, they had 6 preseason games. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and even watching the preseason games, it's not like Al Michaels or
it's your
Tony
local
Romo.
broadcast.
It's your local guys. Your D-listers.
It's the local broadcasts that are doing it. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
That's right. Nobody cares. It's all a bunch of guys that are trying to make the team, and I get that. And maybe some people who are real hardcore aficionados like that.
Yeah.
But those guys are probably going to the fucking practices and training camp and watching them all practice out there and do the shared practices anyway.
Yeah.
So watch it. It doesn't matter making people go to the stadium and do all that. Like I haven't agreed with the preseason for a while. I think they should have gotten rid of it a while ago. This is the one things where I really am on the player side 100%, get rid of the preseason.
Yeah.
It is pointless, especially now with the shared practices that have been going on for about 10 years now or so.
Yeah.
Where these teams do this every now and again, like the Giants did with the Lions, Jets did it with the Panthers, what the Cowboys did it with the Rams or somebody. Like it's just let that happen. Let them do that. Again, it makes it more controlled. It's safer, I think, for everybody. Less chance for injuries, less chance for overzealous players trying to make the squad, injuring somebody or hurting themselves in the effort to do that.
Yeah.
Think they're oppressing somebody. Let it be in the training environment. Let it be in the camp environment where all of that happens, and get everybody ready. And also the other thing with that too is that will get, I think, a lot of the other players, some of the older players and some players that maybe don't want to do training camp, to actually come to training camp to shake off some rust and to do things like that, to get ready for the season, knowing that there's not going to be any preseason games or there's not going to be anything like that. Now, clearly, like you have some players still hold out and do stuff like that because they don't want to do camp or anything. But like you see, like Aaron Rodgers is doing camp, but he's not playing any preseason games.
Yeah.
Like, again, so what's the point? What do we care? We have already seen Zach Wilson how many times? He sucks. We get it. We don't need to see him play in fucking preseason again. We don't.
Yeah.
So hopefully that happens. And honestly, I got to tell you something. If you're going to be sitting there watching these preseason games over this weekend from Thursday on all the way through the weekend, you're probably going to end up needing some W to go ahead and stay focused and awake and seeing everything that happens. Because, Jimbo, I got to tell you, W, it's the best way to get your energy, to stay focused, and to complete any task that you're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Totally agree.
Like now you've been using W for a long time now, well over a year, almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
You've been on the W, loving the Beach and Peach. From what I understand, me personally, I'm a Dub Sludge guy. Love that apple. Love the fall sense of it. I'm always an apple guy. I always like, even like Jolly Ranchers, green apple. Let's fucking go. That's the jam. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So that's the good stuff. But that's what I mean is that they have so many other flavors as well. Some of them, I can't remember. They had one with something about a monkey in it. I don't think it tastes like monkey. I think it just tastes good.
It's Monkey Madness. And
Monkey Madness. There you go.
I think it's like a dragon fruit and passion fruit mixed together. Something like that.
Come on, who wouldn't want that?
Yeah.
Especially now in the summertime, that's really going to help. And the other thing about it, too, you don't get any jitters like you do with any of the other energy drinks or other things like that. Even coffee, you don't get that. Why? Because it doesn't have the sugar in it. You don't get the crash. You don't get the jitters. You don't have any of that. It gives you all natural energy. Also has neurofactor, which helps build your brain up. Helps you get smarter, gets a bigger brain. And if you've been able to tell, Jimbo's brain is getting a lot better. Your language skills are getting better. They really are. Someone wants to go back a couple years and listen to you before you hit Dubby. Language skills, again, you have Jimbo Gwidge for a reason. And here we are. Again, you don't know how to speak the language, so you still say it wrong. But here we are. You know what I mean? So it's there. It helps you out. No jitters, none of that crash. And neurofactor helps your brain. You can't beat any of that. And also, here's the other thing, too. Something else you can't beat. If you go to dubby.gg right now, that's dubby.gg, you go ahead, you find any of the stuff you want there. They have all the flavors. They even have a little variety pack, so you can test all the flavors before you find out which one is your favorite. They have those nice little shakers and tumblers there for you. They have some merchandise, too, for you as well. They got a cool little logo. I like the little smiley face logo. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So they have all that stuff there. You go buy some stuff over there. You get ready to check out. You're like, all right, I'm going to check out because you know what? These prices, not bad. But you know what? We're going to help you make it better because at checkout, in the promo code, you go ahead, you put ST Sports 18, all capital letters, ST Sports 18. You're going to get 10% off of your purchase there at w.gg. When I said it couldn't get any better, I lied. It can absolutely get better with the code ST Sports 18. That's all capital letters, ST Sports 18 over at w.gg. Be better.
Definitely going to have some this weekend so I can stay up and watch the football games. Because, I mean, let's be honest, they are boring, especially...
But there's nothing else.
Yeah.
There's really nothing else. Oh, quick aside, what did you think of the Diaz-Paul fight?
Lasted 3 rounds and I turned it off.
See, I told you. I told you. Nobody wanted to listen to me. But I told you, everybody out there trying to say, oh, it was an entertaining fight. It was an entertaining fight. I don't give a shit.
If Diaz actually punched and not slapped, because that's how he was throwing punches. He was slapping Paul. Like, instead of like punching straight, he was basically
Slapper.
Yeah. I guess maybe he was trying out for Dana White's slap league or whatever that one is.
Slapper. Well, now apparently Jake Paul wants to fight him in MMA.
Yeah.
And they're talking about doing that as the rematch for the next thing. That might be interesting.
I mean, Diaz did put him in a chokehold in the 10th round, so
I would, Diaz might get him on that one. So we'll see. I have no idea, but because you were talking to me last week about like, hey, you gonna watch it? I was like, not a chance.
Yeah, I turned it on. That was it. I was like, I actually, like, after I turned it off, I went back to play hockey, and I was actually only following it on ESPN's website as the live rounds updated.
I saw an update when it said like, oh, Jake Paul knocks down Nate Diaz in the 5th or whatever it was. And I was like, oh, I really don't give a shit. Good for him. His brother did well at SummerSlam, though. Had a great match.
SummerSlam was banging. That was awesome. Like,
I missed it because I had to go to one of the wife's family functions.
Okay.
And,
I mean, that match was nonstop excitement.
I heard that was a good match. I heard there were a couple other good ones. I heard the Shayna Baszler Ronda Rousey match, the MMA match wasn't great. But overall that it was pretty good. You had the who is that? Jimmy Uso turning on Jay, or was it Jay turning on Jimmy? I don't know. I forget. They're twins.
That match sucked.
I think Jimmy turned on Jay. I think Jay was the one.
Yeah, Jimmy turned on Jay.
Yeah, he's back with the bloodline.
I will say that the Lesnar Cody Rhodes match that probably stole the show. Lesnar, like the joke with him, and I mean you've said this also many times. Once Lesnar starts sweating, the match is over in 5 minutes. He went on another good 15-20 minutes. Like,
Lesnar's a professional.
Yeah.
Above anything else, and one thing you can never say about Lesnar is he loves pro wrestling. He loves the craft. And when he's motivated, he puts on great wrestling matches.
Yeah.
He does. And you can tell the difference when he's motivated, which we've seen many times, whether with Roman Reigns, with John Cena, with Cody Rhodes, these last couple ones, and when he's not, when he Dean Ambrose at WrestleMania, that was fucking horrendous. But again, that's a lot on Ambrose, and that's a lot on him and his work ethic and how he handled things. And that's the other thing. If you're not going to engage with Brock doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And so, but Brock Lesnar is an absolute professional. And I think that came through again. But again, WWE's, man, they are hitting it out of the park with a lot of the stuff they're doing.
Yeah. And
their television is better. I miss McAfee, but I mean, the man's got enough on his plate as it is.
Yeah.
So especially you got college football season coming up. He's moving to ESPN, which a lot of people are still pissed about, but good for him, man. That's the dream. One day, I hope. Listen, I want to sell out so bad. I want to be a sellout like nobody's ever sold out before. I want to wear a shirt that's covered like NASCAR. I want every sponsor on me. I want to be on ESPN taking their money. I want to be simulcast on everything. Get me everything. I want to sell out like a son of a bitch. If you don't think I want to sell out, everybody wants to come on here. It's like, oh, this show's not like it used to be. This show was better when they weren't. I don't care. Fuck you. I'm trying to sell out.
So if you sell out, first thing you buy is a new computer?
Yes. I'm going to try to get a deal with like Alienware or something and see if I can get a free computer. That's what I'm going to sell out to sell out. I'm going to sell out my sellout so I can sell out my sellout. I'm going to sell out everything. I don't care. Tattoo something on my ass. Let's go. I'll get W tattooed on my ass for the right price.
I will call W after the show. But I think that's it for this week.
I think we're probably ending on the ass tattoo is probably a good way to end it.
Yeah, because, can't be like Colin Cowherd.
Well, listen, we can't be any worse than Colin Cowherd. That's for sure. We haven't said any. Yeah, you know who really can't win a Super Bowl? Norm Van Brocklin. Okay, Otto Graham never gonna win a Super Bowl. Just it can't happen. Fucking idiot. What a fucking moron.
So till next week, this is your good friend Jimbo.
And it's your boy King.
We're out.